we are heavy today on the show with professors originally from other countries who live in Amherst. So I hope we're okay. It's time for some kitchen table astronomy with Hampshire College astronomer from Amherst, Dr. Salman Hameed, Mr. Universe, and in a universe very close by, we are talking about the universe at a bar tomorrow.
That's correct. So that is Astronomy on Tap, which is organized by astronomers at the UMass Astronomy Department, or you can also say the Fife College Astronomy Department. And so this is a fun thing. It happens once a month, third Tuesday, and if my calculation is correct.
This is the kind of math that even I can do.
No!
Is it the third Tuesday?
So March 18th, there's going to be Astronomy on Tap at New City Brewery in East Hampton, and this is from 7 to 9 p.m. The doors will open at 6:30, and the admission is free, open to all ages, and there will be two talks, one by Professor Alex Pope, and she'll be talking about the Galaxy Eras Tour, and so, so that would work.
Is it really about Taylor Swift?
It's about the Galaxy Swift.
Okay.
Swift Galaxy. But no, she's terrific.
Swift Tuttle is the name of a comet, right?
That is correct.
Also named after Taylor Swift.
And Tuttle. She's terrific. And then there is a graduate student, Drew Lapierre, and he will be talking about gamma ray burst, the biggest explosions in the universe, which is true. That would be really cool. So you have these two talks, but in addition, there will be trivia, astronomy, news, and telescope viewing if it is clear. So the weather seems reasonable. So if you go out and look through the telescope, you won't be completely freezing.
Well, yeah, it'll be warm, but will it be too cloudy? I was talking to our mutual friend, Smith College astronomer James Lowenthal. He had a bunch of Smith students on the top of their observatory trying to look at the full lunar eclipse on Thursday night, and it was like right when it was going to go into totality for lunar eclipse, the big clouds came over, and it was like, wah, wah.
Yeah, I also woke up. I didn't go to Smith, but I did wake up, in the middle of the night to look at it, and it was not to be seen. It was the eclipse all over.
Oh. Well, I was at a Polish bar until its closing time, so I should have looked up and seen it, but forgot to. And luckily I didn't miss anything because you were looking for it and it still wasn't there. But anyway, tomorrow, Astronomy on Tap, New City Brewery, East Hampton, 7 to 9, free and open to the public, and a really fun time. But what are we talking about today, Mr. Universe? Some new planets?
Yes, so we keep on discovering planets, of course, as people know. This is also, in some ways, a great anniversary because in 1995,
5 years ago.
So 30 years ago was the discovery of the first planet around a sun-like star.
People, I think, don't realize this.
Right.
Like an actual evidence of the first planet around another star, even though we theorized this for 100 years or more, the evidence is relatively new.
That's right. So that was 51 peg around that star. The first planet was discovered, and now we have over 5,000 planets that humans have discovered around other stars. So that is great, and we keep on discovering new planets. And so I wanted to just highlight a recently discovered. There are 4 planets, small planets, smaller than the Earth. And they are discovered around Barnard Star. And this is a star which is very close to us. In fact, we always talk about Centauri system. So that's a triple star system that's about 4 light years away. Well, Barnard Star is actually a solo star, like our sun, single. And so Barnard Star is like us. And so there have always been, or there were earlier rumors that it had a planet. The planet had been discovered in the 1960s, and it turns out to be not the case. And there were false. There was sort of like telescope issues. But now, finally, astronomers have detected 4 small planets around Barnard Star, which is around 6 light years away.
So a little bit further away than the Centauri system.
Nevertheless, it's still one of those stars that you can think about if we do interstellar travel. Though I'm not sure with the cuts to NASA, we may be doing it anytime soon. At least not from here. I mean, it may be from China, but not from here. But it certainly would be one of those stars that would be the first ones to go to. But this is a small star. It's called M dwarf star. So these are the stars that live much longer than our sun. In fact, Barnard Star itself is 7 to 12 billion years old. Our sun is about 4.5 billion years. And these type of stars, in fact, Barnard Star itself is considered sort of one of the oldest stars probably in the galaxy. And our universe is full of these M dwarf stars. There are far more these smaller stars than our sun-like stars.
And our sun is
it's a yellow star, and it's sort of like, it's a medium range. There are stars that are larger than our sun as well, and we talk about sizes in terms of their masses. And the bigger the star, the shorter their lifespan. And so there are stars that sort of like, are really big, 10, 20 times bigger than our sun. They live for 10 million years, 150 million years, and then they die, they explode. But the bigger the star, the bigger the explosion. So when we talk about supernovae, like for example Betelgeuse, we talk about that. That's a star that is much bigger than our sun in terms of mass. But smaller stars, they live longer and then they die quietly. And so it's
Sorry to hear that, Michael Keaton.
So
You're a big star to me.
That is correct. And so Barnard Star, they discovered, astronomers actually detected 4 planets around it. And if you want to go out and you go, hey, I'm going to look at Barnard Star, well, you can't, because it is actually really faint. So because it's very small, and in fact, it was only discovered in 1960 by E.E. Barnard. And so that's the reason why its official name is actually Barnard Star. And these planets that have been discovered, those are orbiting very close to the star. In fact, their orbits are between 2 and 7 days around that. So all those 4 planets are within that.
So that's their year.
That's their year. And just a comparison, Mercury goes around the sun for 88 days. So this is actually very close, and one of the things that people think about is, well, is it in the habitable zone? So this is the distance from the star where water can be in liquid form. So, for example, Earth is definitely in the habitable zone, but Venus and Mars are kind of like at the edge of that. Not in this case. The habitable zone, these planets would be too close. Astronomers think those are rocky planets, and they are actually much smaller than the Earth, less than half the size. All 4 of them are actually 0.2 to 0.3 times the size of the Earth's mass, and so these are much smaller, and so probably these are not the places where there's going to be life. Unfortunately, the measurements that astronomers did, and they found these objects using the wobble method. Wobble method is the one where you don't see the planets directly. The planets do not come in front of the star, so that's the eclipsing method. That's where a lot of the planets have been discovered. Instead, astronomers detected these planets by the little wobble that the star does because of the gravity of these planets.
So the planets are pulling on the star enough to give it a wobble effect when they're observing the star, and that they realize something is working on this star, and thus it's a planet.
That's exactly right, and that's, in fact, historically, that's how the first planet, 51 Peg, around a normal star, that's how that was discovered. And so we know planets exist, but their calculations suggest, astronomers, that probably there isn't a planet in the habitable zone either, because they can figure out the wobbles and they can estimate, well, are there other planets around, how far they are, and it doesn't look like it. So that's so Barnard Star, a little sad part in that sense. I don't know if sad or not. I mean,
Well, if it's the second kind of closest option for us to maybe travel to the stars to, it's kind of a bummer that it doesn't have Earth-like planets.
Yes, but here is another cool thing about it. Astronomers, or not astronomers, but academics and space enthusiasts actually thought about going or sending a probe to Barnard Star in the 1970s. There was the British Interplanetary Society these were the group of sort of like amateurs and professionals who thought like, we should really think about a plan. I'm sending a mission to another star system. And at that time, in the 1970s, Barnard Star was thought to have 2 planets. And the nearest star system, the Centauri system, was thought to have no planets around them. And in particular, because we knew the Centauri system at least had 2 stars, and we know there are 3, they knew that at the time that there is a likelihood of planets around double or triple star systems is low. And Barnard Star, in the 1970s, people thought there were planets. It turned out at the time that those were wrong observations. Nevertheless, the British Interplanetary Society started designing plans to have sort of like, a mission that can go to Barnard Star. And they worked on it for 5 years, starting from 1973, and then they released that report in 1978. It was called Project Daedalus. And the point was that they're not talking about sort of like, way out in the future, some technology, hey, warp drive or matter-antimatter stuff. No. But rather, can we imagine just the next generation of technology, and you have a ship that can go there? And the plans are actually really cool. They came up with this in Project Daedalus. There was this spacecraft. Yes, it was really heavy to launch. It was, I think, it was like 50,000 tons of spacecraft. But they suggested that it could be constructed out in the orbit or even beyond that. And then they found a way, like, using nuclear fusion, which we cannot control right now, but nuclear fusion with this spacecraft, that it could be accelerated for 4 years, basically, 2 years for the big ship, and then the key component of that ship that's going to go to Barnard Star. This is an uncrewed, non-crewed. This is just a ship that's going to go, and then it's going to keep on accelerating to almost 12% the speed of light. And the idea was that it's going to reach Barnard Star in about 50 years. So really cool, actually.
So if they had done it, it would be there in a few years.
Well, right. Except the problem was that even then, even though those technologies were reachable, but really not practical. Mm-hmm. Because as I said, you needed to still launch, because you need a lot of fuel to accelerate it. But it is theoretically possible. British Interplanetary Society was an interesting one because they also imagined, it started I think in the 1930s, and they also imagined going to the moon and other things. So they would work on these theoretical concepts, and they said, hey, we have zero resources. We have zero practical stuff.
We have a lot of good ideas.
But we have a lot of
great imagination.
That's right. So Barnard Star was part of that, and I think that is actually really cool. It's one of those things that when we think about interplanetary travel, or interstellar travel, in fact, this would be one of the stars that we would look forward to other than the Centauri system, because it's only 6 light years away. And now we know there are at least 4 planets. There may be other planets far out to that, but yeah, I think those options are open. And if there are aliens over there, if there are living forms over there, and they are nice to us, then we will probably decide to annex them.
That's true.
And put tariff on them.
There was a movement, speaking of technology, that is on the cusp of existing, and the Centauri system, a couple of years ago, where they were saying we could send these iPhone-like cameras out into space and then hit them with laser beams to get them to accelerate to like a quarter of the speed of light or something like that. And then it would be at the Centauri system in like 12 years or something, because it's like 4 light years away. It would take a quarter or a third of the speed of light, and then.
Well, I think
is that still something that they're trying to do? Anybody working on that, or we dropped that whole project?
Well, that was Project Starshot, a breakthrough or something like that. And yeah, I think that was about 1/10 the speed of light. So it was also in the range, sort of like about 40 years or so. And the idea was similar, but of course, as you see, sort of technology changes. So if you are sending a probe, why send a huge probe? You can actually accelerate a smaller thing, and that was a technology and a similar idea, but you'll send a lot of these iPhones to them because there are small ones, and if something doesn't work, that's okay. There will be something else that's going to send us information, and they were going to go and and provide information about the planets in the Centauri system. In Project Daedalus, in fact, there were a lot of instruments that were there. In fact, they would have telescopes that would come out, several years before they get to that, and they could actually do observations of planets around Barnard Star and provide that information to the Earth. They also had many probes that are going to come out. So
Again, good idea. No resources to make it happen.
but for Centauri system, I think that would be interesting. I don't know what is the status of that project is, but I think these are things that's how they start. These are plausible things. In some ways, although I think it will be hard to send those updates, like Apple updates with the
I
iPhone.
just got a new one last night on my phone.
And then the new charger comes in, and then you are out of luck for
Right.
that. but that's precisely the same way of thinking about it. And I would have said, if we don't destroy ourselves. That was Carl Sagan's big thing, that I think humans or whatever our descendants of human are going to another planet. But now with Doge in charge and killing off all the climate observations, there is a climate carbon dioxide monitoring observatory in Hawaii that is being closed down in not on the island of Hawaii, in the state of Hawaii. It was on another island that is being closed down. And so I'm seriously worried about our climate issues, because apart from everything else that is going on that is horrific in terms of minorities, in terms of LGBTQ, in terms of people who are on student visa or green cards, and all of the other things that is taking place, that is horrific. But when we are talking about these issues, you should also think about that another assault that is taking place is on anything related to climate change. And the fossil industry, all the regulations that were there, they are all being removed. And so we will be turbocharging climate change issues. So thinking about these long-term issues, while at the same time we will be facing a lot more climate issues where it was already looking tough to survive how things are going to be. I think that's going to be a bigger challenge. And while thinking about these things as well, I think when I was preparing for this, thinking about Project Daedalus, it almost seems like that was a hopeful time, because you could actually see a positive future. And whereas now we were already down in terms of the climate change, but now our trajectory to even slow down climate change is no longer there either. I think we'll be in a bit of, should say, darker times, or maybe warmer times, if you want to say.
So don't get involved in any 40-year-long experiments to try to send an iPhone to Alpha Centauri, because nobody may be on the receiving end of it once it gets there. Don't buy any green bananas either, I guess.
Well, I think this goes back to a larger question, and this time I really wanted to avoid talking about the darker thing. I thought we can talk about just science, but it's hard to talk about science because of all the cuts that are taking place. People who are doing a lot of this work are university professors, are NASA funded or NSF funded, and so that all of those things are taking place. But at the same time, and it really rubs me the wrong way when somebody like Elon Musk, for example, come out and say, well, he's trying to save humanity and we are going to go to Mars. But you can see that at the same time, he is slashing funding for all the climate issues, a lot of the things that what is for the best of humanity. In terms of tolerance, in terms of diversity, in terms of all of those things. It's the same guy who is killing off a lot of these things, and yet he argues that he is doing this in order to save humanity. I think that's hypocrisy at the highest level. But again, I don't think it makes me angry. It makes me sad that this is who people think he's a genius, and people have put in a lot of faith in him, and I think that's just terrible.
Well, we tried to end on a positive note.